When it comes to our autoimmune system, it turns out that there are a number of different things that can impact our health and well-being, stress being one of the biggies. When we're looking for solutions to all of this, many people turn to nutritional support, lifestyle, and potentially medication if necessary. But there's one missing piece of the puzzle that I don't get to talk about very much because it's not really in my wheelhouse or my area of expertise. And today I am really delighted to be speaking with Dr. Tereza Hubkova. We are going to be talking about medicinal plants and mushrooms and how they can help support our autoimmune system, how they can help us reduce stress. And this is just really going to be amazing. Tereza, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Mira. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So I always like to ask, how did you get started? How did you come to, first of all, be a doctor focusing on these issues, and then your herbal wisdom that you're going to share with us, how you acquired that?
Yeah, it's funny. I did I'm from Czech Republic, so that's my accent. And when I did my medical school back in Czech Republic, when we had our pharmacology classes and we were learning about medications, the first sentence that the professor said to us is, students, remember, the only difference between medication and poison is the dose. And that sentence really shaped the way I practice medicine. It really stuck with me. And I always seek to practice in a way to really use medications only if necessary. It's usually not my first choice, but sometimes they can be life-saving, of course. And if I do need to use medications, I try to use the minimum dose that's effective for the shortest period of time. And meanwhile, we always try to get to the root cause of the disease and fix that, right? And so it really started back with that one sentence in my medical school. And then I came over to the United States to do my medical residency in Framingham. So I did medical residency in internal medicine. And it was amazing to see, American medical system and being in the hospital and intensive care unit. That's where traditional Western medicine really shines and works. But when I finished my residency and I went to regular practice, I was a primary care physician. I really all of a sudden was shocked that prescribing medications wasn't really yielding the results that we would look for. And I was shocked that I didn't have the time to really get to the root cause of disease with people, because we had 30, 40 patients a day booked on our schedule. So it's the broken system that we have. And I was disappointed with that, but I started studying on the side, on my weekends, days off, whatever I could study. And that would be acupuncture, Chinese herbs, regular herbs, Western herbs, functional medicine, integrative medicine, energy medicine, sound healing.
You must have been very busy. Yeah.
I really am a little bit of a nerd. I really try to learn as much as I can to have as a big toolbox for my patients. And then I utilize whatever makes sense for my patients. But always in the bag has to be trying to figure out what is actually causing their illness, their disease, and fix that.
Well, and I love that you bring all of these modalities to the work that you do, because there is so much intercorrelation between how they can help support the body without going first to pharmaceuticals. I mean, my personal philosophy is food first, other things second, and then if we need to, medication, at which point I have to refer out, because of course I'm not a doctor. But I love that as a doctor, you also look to some of these alternative functional strategies to help support the system. And I would love to get your take on the impact of stress on the body, because in this day and age, most of us are swimming in a sea of stress. We're just very overwhelmed. And I think we don't realize the downstream effect it can have on virtually every single body system. Can you share some insight on that?
Yeah. It's so multifaceted how stress affects us, and I think oftentimes how it affects the immune system, how it affects your sleep. When you're stressed out, oftentimes we don't sleep so well. And when we don't sleep so well, basically our immune system is maybe as much as 70% less effective in terms of being able to fight infections, fight viruses. So sleep deprivation is oftentimes connected to stress, both ways, right? Stress also has very negative impact on our gut. When we are under stress, the goal of the body is to get ready to fight or run away from the enemy, run away from danger. It's not the priority to be digesting food. So the whole digestion is kind of put on back burner. We under stress actually produce less digestive enzymes. We may produce less stomach acid. The motility of the gut gets affected, and that can lead to overgrowth of some negative microbes. But also it actually, stress actually produces environment in the gut when some of the less desirable microbes or even the pathogenic microbes kind of benefit, and they kind of perk up and sense that they have an opportunity to strike against us. And some of the beneficial microbes, beneficial probiotics, are actually reduced under stress. So even our gut microbiome changes. And we know that gut microbiome has a lot to do with our immunity.
Yeah.
So that can be another angle by which stress can have a negative impact on our immune system. And then I'm sure you came across with your research on food ingredients on across mast cell activation. So stress hormones are also one of the major trigger of mast cells. Mast cells are part of our immune system everywhere in our body, that when they are triggered, they release hundreds of chemicals, including histamine, and that can lead to all kinds of health issues. But one of the big triggers of that is stress.
And
so
I want to sort of take a slight pause and let people know there are bacteria and microbes and things like that in our system that we tend to classify as negative. It's not that we want to wipe them out completely. We need a balance in there. The goal is to keep those in check, though, because as you mentioned, they tend to be very opportunistic and they will take over when given, the ability to do so.
Yeah.
I also think that, and I'm sure because you have this multimodal practice, most of us don't take time to incorporate stress relieving activities into our everyday life. We're so used to just like a quick fix solution, and it's challenging to remember that we need to take time to breathe, or perhaps to get a regular massage or have acupuncture, or to incorporate other things like that. And I know one of your areas of expertise, of course, is medicinal plants and beneficial mushrooms. And certainly I don't know very many people who say, oh, eat these plants or take these mushrooms. Like, can we talk about what herbs are good choices to help support us, and how those can be beneficial for the mood, for the body, for the immune system?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting how the planet provides everything that's needed for us, or maybe not everything, but a lot of what's needed for us. And before we talk about the plants and mushrooms, which I definitely want to get to, I want to catch you on the importance of breath, because you did mention that. And sometimes, I think often, many of us, when we are under stress, including myself now doing the podcast, we tend to speed up the way we breathe. We tend to talk faster and we breathe faster, and that can actually perpetuate the anxiety, and it can perpetuate the stress, and it can perpetuate the negative impact on the gut. And when we do a simple thing as just slowing down our breath and take maybe 6 seconds to breathe in and 6 seconds to breathe out, about 6 breaths per minute is the magic number, but for some people it can be 7 or 8. It really tells our body that we are not running away from danger, that we are not getting ready to fight, and then we can relax and digest. And it's very, very beneficial for our immune system to get ourselves in that state. So I would encourage everybody to do that. And that can improve even inflammatory conditions, including autoimmune diseases. So herbs, I have kind of come across herbs for the first time really seriously after I had my child. I was an older mother. I had my first child when I was 40, my only child, I should say. And I got so sick. I was so sick after giving birth. For one, I developed thyroiditis. I developed Hashimoto thyroiditis, but I also was tremendously sleep deprived. And I was catching every cold, every virus that was going around. I was constantly having runny nose, sore throat. I felt almost ashamed of being a physician and being in that state, practicing medicine and not being healthy myself. But that's at that point, I was so unable to find anything to help me that I started looking into herbs. And the first herb I came across was astragalus, Astragalus membranaceus, which is used a lot in China. They cook with it. They use it more like food ingredient, and they put it in soups and stews. And it's a wonderful plant that can boost your immune system. It can actually even elevate white cell count sometimes in people who had, let's say, chemotherapy. And so it makes you much more efficient in fighting infections. And I could see the result of taking the astragalus within a week or two. And I've been taking it on and off since then, whenever there is a flu season or COVID season or just upper respiratory infections around. I take astragalus preventively. And it has made such an amazing difference in my life that then I started attending herbal conferences and learning more about not just astragalus, but other herbs as well.
Wow. And so one of the, you mentioned that you got Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune condition. So is stress an underlying cause, or can it be an underlying cause for a lot of different autoimmune health conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. There are multiple causes that can lead to autoimmunity, but stress is one of them. I was actually surprised. Several years ago, I did a continuous medical education class for physicians on autoimmune diseases, and they mentioned that stress may be the #1 reason for autoimmunity in women.
Wow.
Which I thought was surprising acknowledgement. But again, the avenues in which stress causes autoimmunity may be that it leads to leaky gut, and it's all interconnected. But stress is definitely a big factor. And one of the ways that stress can also increase autoimmunity is that it tends to wake up some of the hidden infections that may be kind of sleeping in our body and waiting for their opportunity, such as Epstein-Barr virus.
Wow. And, I think one of the other things that's important to point out to people is autoimmune disorders in conventional medicine tend to be neatly compartmentalized into their condition, but autoimmune disorder is actually a spectrum. And so many people who have one autoimmune disorder frequently wind up having 2 or 3 or more, because the body is just continuing to spiral downwards.
Right.
And so it sounds like stress management is huge, nourishment is huge, and then the potential to add in medicinal plants and mushrooms. Can we touch on the mushrooms for just a minute?
Yes. Yeah. So it's funny because as children, we were foraging for mushrooms in Czech Republic. A lot of families do. So we were kind of interested in the edible mushrooms. But it really wasn't until I was in the United States that I learned that there are many mushrooms that can be used medicinally. From shiitake mushrooms, that is both culinary as well as medicinal, oyster mushrooms, lion's mane, that's another one that is culinary as well as tremendously medicinal for better brain function, to mushrooms that are really more medicinal, like reishi. You wouldn't eat that necessarily, but you can make wonderful medicine from that. And many of these mushrooms are really immunomodulatory. So they modulate the immune system. They help you be more efficient in fighting viruses, and also fighting potentially cells that are affected by cancer. And at the same time, some of them can help with allergies, reduce
Oh,
allergies.
really?
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, like reishi. Yeah, it can be used in allergies or asthma.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah. And many mushrooms are also adaptogenic. So
Right.
maybe the way they help is actually that they help your body deal with stress a little bit better.
And so for those people who don't know, can you just explain what an adaptogen is?
Adaptogens are plants or mushrooms or substances that basically help us adapt to changes in our environment, such as stress. They could also be used by athletes, because they help you adapt to exercise and the increased need for oxygen and blood flow. They oftentimes help with immune system, and they oftentimes also help with our hormones. They can help balance cortisol. They can even help balance sex hormones, some of them like ashwagandha. Some of them can help with thyroid, ashwagandha can actually increase the conversion of T4 to T3, so it can actually boost a little bit your thyroid function. And some other herbs can be used if the thyroid is overactive, like lemon balm can be used to calm people when they have too much thyroid hormone and they are kind of hyper and overactive and anxious and may have palpitations or diarrhea. Lemon balm can kind of calm that down and be very helpful that way. Rhodiola is another wonderful adaptogen. Rhodiola rosea is a plant that grows oftentimes in mountains like Siberia, Scandinavia. So it is adapted to grow in high altitude when the oxygen levels are a little bit lower. And when people take it, it may perhaps help to adapt to also high altitude. So like in Colorado, it's one of my favorite herbs to recommend to people because we live in high altitude. But it's an antiviral plant. It's antibacterial. It can help your immune system fight different infections. And it also helps you produce more DHEA in your adrenal glands. So that can give you more stamina, more kind of physical stamina, more muscle strength, but also more mental stamina. I read that rhodiola was used by Vikings when they went to battle. Yeah, so that's another wonderful plant if people have a little bit of brain fog from thyroid or difficulty focusing, or even if they don't have thyroid disease and they just want to study for an exam or they need to be more focused because of their work, rhodiola is a wonderful plant to take.
So it sounds like there is a lot of, like you said, the planet provides. So there's a lot of plant-based wisdom that can help us in addition to lifestyle changes and nutritional changes. If someone were looking to get started, if they're listening to this and they're like, yeah, man, there's just way too much stress in my life, what would be a really good place for them to start? Like, what do you think is a good number one thing to do?
Oh, I think probably making sure they get their sleep, because sleep is sacred. Don't let anything disturb your sleep. And it may be hard to sleep when you stress because the stress hormone cortisol makes it really hard to sleep. So again, there may be some supplements and plants that kind of help to reduce the cortisol level, whether that's ashwagandha, which can be very calming when you take it at night. It's called the Queen of Ayurveda. It's a plant that also is used to give you energy during the day, but at the same time, it helps you calm. So it helps to fall asleep. It's anti-inflammatory. It does so many things for us. They used to say thousands of years ago, if you take ashwagandha for 1 year, you're going to have the strength of a stallion for 10 years. So I always have the picture of stallion in my mind, how that's an animal that has a lot of muscle and sharp mind, and it's useful. It has a lot of energy, fertility and all that stuff. So helping your body to sleep, whether that's by doing meditation or, maybe evening yoga or journaling, is very important, or whether you talk to somebody who's knowledgeable about herbs, and there are so many herbs that can be used to help you sleep.
That is really wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us. This has been really good. Like I said, I don't often have the opportunity to talk to someone about herbal wisdom and how we can use these plants to support us. I know before we hopped on, you had shared that you have an essential herb kit document or the essential herb toolkit that people might want to look at. Can you share with us where we could find that?
Oh, I maybe I misunderstood. I don't necessarily have a kit that I would supply to people, but there are certain herbs that I use so commonly that I would almost recommend that people have it in their kitchen cabinet, and that's the astragalus, which is
Okay.
wonderful, especially going into the flu season. It's very, very safe plant to take. Like I say, they use it to cook in China. And you can take it daily for even a few months, maybe from November until February, whenever the flu season is around you. So that's one wonderful plant I use a lot. Another one would be the rhodiola. I feel that is a plant that most people can take. It is stimulating. So people have to take it in the morning because it actually can kind of give them focus and energy. You might not want to take it at night. But interestingly, if you take it in the morning, it helps us with our circadian rhythm. So some people have the energy during the day, but then they sleep better with rhodiola in the evening.
Wow.
So, and I always have it around, and I take it when I need to study for exams or if I'm feeling like I'm catching cold. I would say lemon balm is another wonderful plant to have at home, lemon balm. It's from the mint family, and it's also antiviral and antibacterial. So you can take it when you're feeling like you're catching cold. It's very calming, so people with anxiety may benefit and may take it 3 times a day. People can take it to help them sleep. People can take it to help them with irritable bowel. There are many, many different indications for that. So that's another one I always have in my medical cabinet.
Your herbal kitchen, yeah.
In my herbal kitchen. And whatever it is, start with maybe 3 or 5 herbs or mushrooms that you feel comfortable. Get to know them, how they affect you. If you don't feel well on them, then stop them. But I think you will find the benefits once you start taking something like that. And it may inspire you to then be learning about other plants and other herbs. And we can often grow these medicinal plants at home or in our garden, or we then buy them very inexpensively. So that's the other thing I like about herbal medicine, that is very accessible, it's very inexpensive, and it doesn't tend to have side effects. It tends to have collateral benefits. So many of the benefits of adaptogens, for instance, are for brain health, So while you are helping your immune system, or your sleep or your gut, at the same time, you are actually doing something that may lower your risk of Alzheimer, or that may just improve your functioning, memory, decisions, mood, energy. So don't be afraid to use plants. Read about them first, or talk to a practitioner. Don't experiment totally yourself. Be under some guidance. But overall, plants tend to be very, very safe.
And so one of the easiest ways to incorporate these plants, I'm assuming, is through something like a tea, like an herbal tea. Is that true, or?
Yeah, tea is going to be a, kind of a simple, easy way to start. For instance, holy basil, and that would be another one in my toolkit, holy basil tea or tulsi. That's a plant that actually they pray to in India because it just does so many things. And that's a delicious tea. But if you want something a little bit stronger than tea, then tincture. Tinctures are often stronger. And I love tincture because there's something about the taste of the herbs that already may give some information to our body, how they work. And especially if they taste good, you may want to use the tincture. And it also allows you to be micromanaging the dose. You can start with a few drops, before you maybe go to the full recommended dose. So I like tinctures. And then, of course, these days you can find a lot of these adaptogens or mushrooms in capsules from some reputable companies. And always try to work with the practitioner to steer you towards companies that are reputable, because supplements are not regulated. And sadly, there have been cases where they were adulterated or contaminated with something. So,
and even with herbs, I'd like to go back to what you said at the very beginning, which is that the difference between something that's helpful and something that's dangerous is the dose.
Yeah.
So we really want to be careful about that.
Yeah. And the dose can sometimes be cumulative, right? So it may not be like one-time big dose, but maybe if you take something for too long, it could have some negative impact, especially when it comes to medications. But even with herbs, we usually recommend that you take breaks, that you don't take it all the time, every single day, year round, but usually just when you need it for a few weeks, and then you take a break, and you can rotate different plants and take another one instead. So yeah. Astragalus, interesting that it's the plant that I kind of started with, has maybe even some ability to put the EBV virus to sleep.
Wow.
We didn't talk much about the EBV, but Epstein-Barr virus is a virus that probably most of us had when we were children. It may have not even caused any symptoms when we were really young. So maybe 90% of us had EBV. When we get it as teenagers, we tend to get more sick. And then we call it infectious mononucleosis. People get really sick and really tired. It can have abnormalities in their liver and the real issues. But the virus then stays in our body forever. So most of us have the EBV virus in our body, and it's kind of curled up next to our DNA. And it's waiting for opportunity. It's waiting for its opportunity. And when we have stress or sleep deprivation, or we overwork, the virus can sense it and perks up and starts multiplying. And that has been linked to many autoimmune diseases, including multiple sclerosis or thyroid autoimmune diseases. So again, having tools in your toolbox that help you deal with stress, that help you sleep, can keep the virus kind of asleep. So it doesn't wake up. And that's another way that these plants can help you with autoimmunity.
Wow. Well, that is a lot of information to unpack, but this has been really, really wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise about these herbs. And I love that you also share the reminder that if you're not used to working with herbs or you don't know a lot about them, it is important to work with a practitioner so you don't overwhelm yourself and your body. And so I am delighted to have talked with you. I will definitely share your information down below so that people can connect with you. But Tereza, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mira, for having me.
Absolutely. And for everybody who is listening, I will put Tereza's contact information and a couple of key things that she shared down below. So please be sure to check that out. And remember, in all you do, to make today a healthy day. Bye, folks.
Blessings. Have a great day.